So the question I want to talk about today is it morally wrong to take an ayahuasca ritual in Latin America? And I'm asking specifically, is it wrong for those who are not part of that culture, who are not part of that tradition? And I think a lot of people, students in my class and people I ran into, feel that there's something problematic about it. And so now I want to consider two reasons or arguments that we might use to support the claim that it is wrong to take in those rituals. And one might be along the lines that such a practice is not truly part of your identity or part of your culture or part of you, and that is the reasons why you shouldn't do it. In reply to that, I think there's two responses. One reply might be that the people like shamans who host these practices allow people from other cultures to participate. And the thought is that if it's their decision to invite you or to have you, then there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. Another thought is that if your problem, your objection is that it's not part of who you are, then it might be that full belief or full identification with the complexity of the practice may not be necessary. Taking the ayahuasca trip might be more like meditation than baptism. What do I mean by that? Consider baptism. It would be really weird, if not wrong, for someone to go in and have a Christian baptism. And that's because, if they didn't believe it, and that's because when someone is baptized in Christianity, that is a public signal that they are expressing the beliefs of that religion. But consider meditation. Meditation has a rich, complex, and beautiful religious history and religious philosophy. And someone who meditates doesn't automatically accept all of that stuff. It might be, and this is an open question, that participating in an ayahuasca ritual is more like meditation than baptism. And if that's the case, then maybe it seems like it's not that big of a problem if one personally does not accept all the beliefs of the ayahuasca tradition or the shaman's tradition. Then we might take a second route into trying to argue why there's something problematic about someone going and taking these rituals. And it has to do with the consequences. People who are going to these things are typically paying foreign prices, so thousands of dollars. And then that changes the economy, and that, in a sense, commercializes the practice. And so we tend to think that this commercialization of the practice is going to dilute it or ruin it, make it less real or less authentic. And by going and doing that, one is itself somehow ruining the tradition. On this point, I had my class on psychedelics read an article by Virginia Futuo, if I pronounced it correctly. And this author had a very interesting view. What she says ultimately is, look, as a matter of history, the shamanism that we know today, that we have access to today, is already the result of capitalism. It's a myth to think that they live somehow unaffected by the forces of capitalism in this sort of ideal state with nature. And what we have to realize is that these people, shamans, are like you and I, living in a society with its own unique struggles, and that we need sort of resources to sort of get by. And what they want and what they need sometimes is just to be able to offer these services. Lastly, one might think that what's really wrong is not an individual's visit, but as a collective, we mistrust that Western individuals or systems are going to actually respect the practice preserve the practice and not take it over for their own capitalistic gain. And so the question then really becomes, in what way can one include shamans into the practice and do so in a way that doesn't seem like it's just capitalism sneaking in as a hidden form of respect. So just to summarize the main points, the question is it morally wrong to take an ayahuasca ritual in Latin America? It doesn't have to be Latin American, be in any other culture that's not your own. And we considered two reasons why we might think the answer is yes, it is wrong. One is that one, as an outsider, doesn't fully believe, endorse, accept the values and beliefs of that practice. And two replies to that is, one, we should respect shamans who offer this practice. And secondly, we might think that this full identification with the whole practice is too strong of a requirement. This was the idea that maybe the practice is more like meditation than baptism. Secondly, we looked at sort of consequentialist reasons that by going there, we're creating a new sort of economy there and absorbing the practice into a sort of capitalistic system. And the reply we saw here from the author I mentioned earlier is that it false that shamanism is not already a result of capitalism. Secondly, to think otherwise is to romanticize the culture and to think of it completely unlike oneself, and that is a mistake. They are people just like you and me that need resources to be able to sustain themselves and their ways of life. But even with that said, the point I was trying to make is that there's something that seems suspicious, and it's that we have a large history of colonialism, and so that leaves this sort of, they need the sort of capitalistic framework answer to survive, a bit like keeping the status quo, but then at the same time acting like it's in their favor. These are all points I am trying to make up my mind on the question. You let me know, you comment what you think, and I will see you in the next video.